And joining us right now here on 610 WTVN, a man that has dealt with these people, well, probably more close up than you'd rather do so. We're speaking with David Bego. He's the author of The Devil at My Doorstep. You can learn more about his book and his dealings with SEIU by going to his website, The Devil at My Doorstep. Thanks for the time. I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on, Dirk. I appreciate it.
Your story of your run-in with SEIU, SUI, should chill any business owner in the country. Was reading a note about you spoke at a libertarian convention back at the end of April, and there was incredible feedback on your presentation there. Briefly set up for folks that aren't aware of what happened to you and your company EMS when SUI tried to take you over, basically.
Well, they contacted us back in April of 2005 via letter, and I basically ignored it. And then they started making phone calls to my office and sending me emails, pretty persistent, and wouldn't give up. So I finally met with them twice in 2006. On the second occasion, they had their president from the SEIU Local 1 out of Chicago and their contract administrator out of Cleveland. And we had lunch, and we were sitting there talking, and I had told them all along, and I think I need to clarify this up front, that if they want to have an election and our people want to have an election, I was all for it. Let's do it. Let's make it, do it by the book. And if they won, I'd live with it. And if they lost, then leave us alone.
And historically, that's typically how it works, and that's the legal way of doing things when unions want to come in and have a union shop in a business, right?
Right, absolutely. But in this case, that's not what they're after. They're out to unionize and organize the employer, not the employee. And as I sat and talked to them at this meeting and said, look, show me what you can do for my people. And they either couldn't or wouldn't give me information that was credible. And they kept asking me to sign a neutrality agreement, which I'll talk about in a second. But I finally looked at him and I said, I'm not going to sign the neutrality agreement. And the guy from Cleveland looks at me, he says, you're really not going to sign the agreement? I said, no. I don't feel like it's morally my right to give away my employees' right to a secret ballot election. And that's basically what it does.
So they're trying to do card check before card check is even passed by Congress.
Absolutely. In fact, the neutrality agreement that I just mentioned is the genesis of the Employee Free Choice Act, card check.
Now let's set up to your company EMS, a leader in the field of environmental workplace maintenance. This is a company that you started from the ground up and has grown to 5,000 workers. Now, a lot of people say businesses do need to be unionized because, they're not paying the workers a competitive wage or not giving them benefits. That's not true at your company EMS, though, is it?
No, what's interesting about this, and they tried to organize all of my people in the Midwest, in Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and we were just getting into the Columbus, Ohio market at the time, and then in St. Louis. And as all the contracts stand today in those markets, our people make more money and have access to as good or better benefits.
So by being unionized, they would get less money because they'd be giving more money to the unions.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. And it was interesting going back to this luncheon when I told him I wasn't going to sign the neutrality agreement. The contract manager looked at me and says, Mr. Bego, we enjoy conversation, but we embrace confrontation. We're going to attack your people, your customers, and you personally in the next 30 to 60 days. And
he's sitting in the room with you and looking you in the eye and telling you that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a mob shakedown right out of the movies.
Well, it kind of is.
Isn't that funny? What a coincidence. And I'm sure he said this in a very calm voice, wasn't yelling or screaming, but just laying it down and threatening you right there.
Right there, and I had my attorney at the luncheon, and he smiled at me as he was doing it, and I smiled back at him, and he wasn't very happy with me, but we are familiar with them around the country over the last 10 years or so we knew what their tactics would be in that, and they started about 3 or 4 months later.
There are so many frightening things that are coming out of the leaders in this labor movement, and it's a Marxist organization, wants to destroy companies. Andy Stern, you quote him on your website, and I've seen the clip many times on a variety of programs. Andy Stern, although he preferred to lead with the power of persuasion, with many resistant employers, we were often left no choice but to use the power of persuasion and the persuasion of power. Also threatening language there. We're going to you can stay for one more segment, right, Mr. Bego?
Absolutely.
David Bego's our guest, the author, The Devil at My Doorstep. You can find out more by going to the website of the same name, thedevilatmydoorstep.com. The threats, the intimidation, it got bad and cost Mr. Bego $1 million. But he ended up beating SEIU. We'll talk more with him in 4 and our guest kicking off the show this weekend is author David Bego. The book that you need to check out is The Devil at My Doorstep. You can find out more at the website thedevilatmydoorstep.com. David Bego, though, is the CEO of a company that was attacked by SUI, tried to come in, unionize his employers, really against their will, and has written a tell-all book about it. In the book, Mr. Bego, you write, 1 minute, we're enjoying the fruits of our labors, minding our own business, and the next attacks begin lambasting the company as, quote, rat contractor that cleaned buildings dubbed, quote, houses of horror for janitors who were exploited, intimidated, threatened, and abused in the name of corporate greed. For the first time in our company's history, multiple National Labor Relations Board filings, frivolous charges with questionable evidence would be filed against us for employee rights violations and for firing union supporters as the EMS image was dragged through the mud. So you were telling us earlier you'd sat down in a meeting at the beginning of all this, and basically the guy from them said, if you don't do this, give up your employees' rights to vote for the union, we're going to attack you. And they did just that, didn't they?
Yes, they did. And if I may, I'd just like to share a few of those stories real quick. One that, you start off your show as listening, you're talking about how they're in the lobbies of buildings in New York. They actually did that in Indianapolis to us. They did two things. They did a situation where they walked in and released 100 helium balloons inside the atrium, which, of course, went to the top of the atrium and stuck.
And I remember that part, too. What color were the balloons?
Oh, they were your purple and yellow of the SEIU.
Wonderful!
And, you have to give them an A for ingenuity.
Oh, yeah. Those people on the far left, they have lots of times for silly things like that. They can have meetings and organize chants and have puppet-making sessions and stuff like that.
Well, that's right. The other thing they did in the same building is I always get this clergy group on their side called the Interfaith Workers Justice Group. And they recruited some clergy people from all different denominations here locally in Indianapolis, and they did a sit-in in this same building, downtown Indianapolis, and blocked the entrances and wouldn't let people in or out, and the police had to come and escort them out and arrest them. But the ones that really bother me are what pertain to my customers and my employees. And one down in Cincinnati, in your state, they filed an OSHA complaint against us where they said that we were forcing our employees to carry human body parts out in bags at night, which it just wasn't true. It was a normal biology lab. But the next day, or that same afternoon that they filed the complaint, they were passing out handbills on the street of Indianapolis saying we were under an investigation for those acts. And then,
again, with these folks, it gets back to the Saul Alinsky thing: the ends justify the means.
Right, and not only that, it's the same thing that I think our government's doing now. It's overwhelming the system by throwing as many things out at a time, so we just can't keep up with it all.
Now, here you have national organizations with big political pull, and when they do things, they can get media attention because it's so over the top for what they do. That puts a lot of pressure on companies that are contracting with your business. Did your business suffer because of this?
No, to our knowledge, we didn't lose any business because of the union, but we did. We were very diligent about going out and sitting down with both our customers and our employees and telling them what's going on. And I'd like to make a point here. Our employees never invited the SEIU in. and rarely do the employees invite unions in. They invite themselves because they're desperate for membership. And I think people need to understand that. And so they come in with their corporate campaign knowing that the employees aren't interested and try to force the employer to sign these agreements.
What about personal attacks on you yourself during this whole battle with SEIU?
Well, I'd like to tell you about one that happened in my neighborhood. By the way, we know they had a file on us about 2 inches thick, my wife and I, but Halloween 2007, I got home early to hand out candy to the kids, and I got a call from a neighbor who also was one of our customers. And she says, "Dave, what's going on?" And I said, "I don't know." And she says, "Well, we just had a couple trick-or-treaters that we gave them candy, and they handed us this horrible flyer that said House of Horrors, which was her husband's building, and where we abuse and mistreat people every night and all that." And
what? When you heard her tell you that news, what was your first reaction?
Well, I learned not to react during this because that's what they want you to do. And I just told her, I said, "Please come down to my house and I'll explain it," because her husband was out of town. And as she came down, as we were standing there in the driveway talking about it, 2 cute little kids, and this is the really sad part of it, little kids, cute kids, come up. We give them candy, and they're standing there and they're shaking, and they've got these flyers in their hands. And I look at the little girl and I said, "Were you supposed to give me one of those?" And she shook her head, "Yes," so I took it. And I look up across the street, there's 2 cars with union organizers in it. I mean, it's a blatant attempt to intimidate me and my neighbors, and some of my neighbors were scared by the tactics. But the worst part, using little kids. Yeah,
how close are they, with tactics like this, how close are they getting to, charges of extortion or blackmail or something, like that?
Well, the problem is, under National Labor Relations law, the bar is so low for the unions that they can get by without about anything.
I would think, though, maybe there could be something under RICO, the racketeering.
Many companies have tried it, and it just hasn't worked. Again, you've got to have so much evidence, and when it comes to labor law, it's really tough to do. So we decided to take them through their own system, which is the National Labor Relations Board, and that's really where we ended up beating them at.
And this whole battle took 3 years and how much money?
Well, we spent right around $1 million in legal fees to defend ourselves over that period. And actually, I went 5 years. We just won a major battle against them here last month. The final decision was made, and it's a huge decision for all companies if they would just go back and look at what we did and how we did it.
So up until a month ago, you were still dealing with this. And maybe again, because what happens if card check gets passed by Congress and employees' rights to a secret ballot are taken away? Does it start all over again with companies, and this time they have to be let in?
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Well, you're David Bego. You're an American hero for standing up to these thugs. The book is The Devil at My Doorstep. You can get to the website to find out more and make an order, thedevilatmydoorstep.com. We'll also get a link up to it on my personality page after the program. Mr. Bego, thank you for your time. Thank you for the good fight, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Well, thank you for your time, and you have a nice weekend too, Dirk.
Thank you.